Hello everybody and welcome to a video update. Okay, so those of you that have been following my forums over the past few days, or checked in and seen some of the posts I've been making, or if you're somebody that's been actively posting in the conversation that's been taking place, you know what I'm going to be talking about here. But for the rest of you, this video is for your benefit. So basically, since January, February this year, I've been having crashing issues with Sony Vegas. Now I'll take you through it all step by step, so you're in the picture, and I've got nothing else better to do with my Monday evening than ramble and rant and whatever else. So anyway, this was happening. Sony Vegas would crash whilst rendering using the standard file formats that come with Sony Vegas. Couldn't weigh it up, tried a few fixes here and there, rolling back graphics drivers and other little tweaks and changes, and couldn't sort the problem out. So eventually I found a custom extension that worked with Sony Vegas that rendered videos into a format that you could upload to YouTube, but that didn't use the standard file formats of Sony Vegas. Marvelous! It worked. It worked. Vegas no longer crashed. I couldn't render videos into 60 frames per second or anything like that because this custom extension was limited to 30 frames per second, and if I'm quite honest with you, the quality of the videos isn't quite as good as the standard file formats that come with Sony Vegas, the main concept AVCs or the video WMVs. So it was a perseverance, it was a workaround, and it whilst it was working fine, I kept on with it. But about 2 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, this custom extension that I've been using started to crash as well. Major problems, because this was the only solution that I had. I persevered with it. It might crash once every 3 or 4 times, but recently it's been crashing very often, and it's like, I'm going to have to address this problem again. So I, again, went back to the drawing board, did some more research, tried to look at some more things, but couldn't sort the problem out. So on Friday, I spent all day Friday looking at alternative pieces of software to use to render my videos, and tried Lightworks, didn't like the interface and how it worked, and then tried Adobe Premiere Elements. That seemed reasonable to use, and did a test video and started it off rendering. It crashed on the render. Okay, so this led me to the conclusion that it wasn't in fact Sony Vegas that was the problem, but it must be my computer that's the problem, because it's now crashed with 2 different programs whilst rendering. Okay, so it could either be a hardware problem, which I'm not going to be able to troubleshoot very easily, or it could be something as simple as a registry problem. When Vegas crashes, it spews back at you all various different DLL files. It could be a registry problem. My computer was getting cluttered with crap, and therefore I decided, what better time to reformat the hard drives, reinstall a fresh copy of Windows, and get everything started from a clean slate. It's a bit of a hassle, but it's not the worst thing in the world. So I did that on Saturday evening / Sunday morning, was up until 5 AM reinstalling Windows 7. Sunday morning comes around and I start up Vegas again, and I get all my Steam games back installed, record a session, and then set a test render off. It crashed. So it's nothing to do with my registry then, which leaves a hardware problem. So yesterday I was very hacked off. I'm no closer to the solution. I even considered finishing LPing once and for all, because this was really getting me down, and I can't afford a new computer at the moment or anything like that. And then to cap things off yesterday, we had a big football match, top 2 in the table, and we lost quite heavily. So that really hacked me off as well. So yesterday night I consoled myself with sweet popcorn and copious amounts of tea, not alcohol but tea, to console myself. Watched a film, which I don't do very often. I don't usually watch films, but yeah, I just wanted to chill out and distance myself from anything to do with LPing. And that was me yesterday, very low point. And then this morning I woke up, I don't know why, it's like a Monday morning feeling. I always wake up on a Monday looking forward to the week ahead and with a renewed energy, renewed vigour. I woke up this morning, checked my forums out, and Joker Jake, God bless you, thank you very much for your suggestion, mentioned the CPU. And the entire 10 months that I've been trying to troubleshoot this problem, the one thing I didn't try to troubleshoot was the CPU. And now this sort of coincides because last November I started getting some crashing problems with my CPU fan. It didn't start on boot up, and you'd have to wait for it to kick in and stuff like that. So obviously it's on the fritz, something's not quite right with it. But I've persevered and just let it go on, and it only happens every so often, so it's not a massive issue. But this is round about the same sort of time that the crashing issues started. Fan started playing up in November, crashing issues started in January. A couple of months difference. So I thought, okay. So then I did some research into CPUs and how to maybe try and troubleshoot some CPU problems with Sony Vegas. And we started out by looking at the temperatures. So rendered away using the standard file formats that always crash this morning. Did a test video, set it off rendering, and checked the temperatures of the CPU. And they were in the 80s, mid to high 80s, which are high, but not catastrophic levels. And not high enough really to cause major problems, but they're a little bit high. And after 2 or 3 minutes of this, poof, crash. Okay. So then I went back to the drawing board and tried the custom extension that works more often. Does that run somehow at a lower temperature? Set it off rendering. Oh, yes it does. Temperatures whilst rendering using custom extension, not in the 80s, but in the 70s. So for some bizarre reason, the custom extension doesn't require as much CPU load, and the temperatures are therefore lower. So that's why this custom extension works more than the file formats in Vegas Pro, because it's running at a lower load. We're getting somewhere. Right. So my next challenge was to try and bring down the load of the CPU and thus the temperatures of the CPU whilst rendering in the standard file formats of Sony Vegas. So to do that, reduced the priority of Sony Vegas in terms of the CPU priority, and also reduced the number of threads used whilst processing from the options in Sony Vegas. Set a test video rendering off. Also opened up my case, so I opened up the side panel of my case, opened up the top of my case so that it wasn't wasn't fenced in, wasn't boxed in, and the air could circulate around it to help again lower the temperatures. So all of these things combined, whilst I was rendering using the standard file formats in Sony Vegas that were always crashing, set it, rendered with all these things, and the temperatures were no longer in the 80s, but they were in the 70s. Just like the custom extension was. So left it, praying that it would work. Lo and behold, an hour passed, no crash. The lower temperature, the lower priority allocated to the CPU for Sony Vegas brought the temperatures down, brought the load of the CPU down whilst rendering, and it seems to have sorted the problem out. Great stuff, you say. Well, it is great stuff, but the fact of the matter is it's still not a solution, really. It's a workaround. I've figured out how to reduce the temperature, but there's still an underlying issue here. The damn cooler is probably knackered or needs changing, or there could even be a CPU problem. It's 2.5 years old, it just might be wear and tear. It could, might have to fork out for a new CPU. But the fact of the matter is the computer is still under warranty. So I rung the company today that I bought it from and decided now is the time to use that warranty and to get them to look at the machine, stress test it again, look at the processor, and also replace the cooler, because the cooling fan is definitely on the fritz. So I booked that in to be collected on Wednesday, and it's going to be sent over there. They're going to do all that stuff, and they're going to send it back to me. So that means I'm going to be without my computer they said 4 working days. Well, 4 working days. By the time they get it, it'll be Thursday, weekend. I'm probably looking at the back end of next week before I get my computer back. So the main update really is to say, in a long and convoluted way, I thought I'd share my problems with you. I thought I'd share what I'm going through or have been going through over the past 10 months to try and consistently put videos up. It's not been a smooth process, and I'm a lesser willed person could well have probably given up by now, but I refuse to be beaten by a problem, and I really do get when I get my teeth stuck into something, I want to see it through to the conclusion, and I won't be happy until this problem is sorted. I know it can be sorted, and until I solve it, I'm not going to stop. So anyway, there'll be no videos uploaded between now and the back end of next week. I'm not on a cruise, I'm not on holiday, unfortunately. I just don't have my computer. I'm going to be... This damn thing here, this damn thing, this huge beast of a machine I've had for the past 2.5 years is my baby. I don't, other than being on holiday, there's never been a day that passes where it's not been turned on. It's always on. I watch TV through this thing, I do everything through this thing, you know? And so to be without it for up to a week is going to be like losing an arm. So I'm not happy about that. But I just recently got a laptop, so I can do the bare basics on that, checking my emails and stuff, checking my comments and stuff like that, watching YouTube videos. I can do all that on the laptop, but I can't play any games. I can't do any LPing, any of the main stuff that I like to do as a hobby. But that's a good thing, I suppose, because it gives me a bit of a break as well. So there you go. Thought I'd share that with you. And hopefully, when the thing comes back at the back end of next week, if the replacing the cooler helps the temperatures of the CPU drop a little bit from 80 to 70 or even 60s, that I'm sure is going to solve the issue of Sony Vegas crashing. And if the very worst comes to the worst, and it doesn't, there's one last thing I know I can do, and that is my computer is overclocked quite high at this overclock settings and voltages. So if I load the BIOS profile up before rendering as normal rather than overclocked, that will further lower the stress on the CPU and the temperatures. So I can play my games in overclocked BIOS mode and render in normal mode. That would be a bit of a hassle, but again, it would allow me to render in standard file formats in Sony Vegas, and rendering in standard file formats in Sony Vegas means that I can finally render in 60 frames per second, because the only thing stopping me is this crashing problem. So there you go. I thought I'd share my entire 10 months of hair pulling experiences with you. I hope I didn't bore you too much, and you won't be seeing me again until the back end of next week, when hopefully I'll have some good news. So until then, see you soon.